The first thing you want to do, of course, is go through the questions regarding what things to think about when you're reading the story. For example, what's the situation when the story begins, and then what is the situation when the story ends, and what happens between the beginning and the end, who are the major characters. And then after you've thought about these basic ideas, read the story once, just to find out what happens. The second time you want to mark the things you're not sure what they mean, and then also mark the things you think are important to understanding what happens in the story. How you've decided to interpret the story and what it means is going to influence what information you extract. I'm going to just take a relatively simple approach to this, and I'm going to keep the focus primarily on the main character and what is happening with him. My conflict is the conflict of the main character and his situation. We have in Mulmine in Lower Burma, so that's where it happens. That's important. We need to know that. Okay, that's in line 1. The main character is hated by large numbers of people. That's important. He says, it's the only time in my life I've been important enough for this to happen to me. That seems pretty significant too. He's a subdivisional police officer. So subdivisional, to be honest, I don't think is that important, so I'm just going to mark a police officer. So all of these things are descriptions of his feelings in his situation so far. Police officer, I was an obvious target. I was baited. Let's go to the next paragraph. When a nimble Burman tripped me up on the football field and referee looked the other way, the crowd yelled with hideous laughter. So sneering yellow faces of young men. Insults hooted after me. It got on his nerves. Young Buddhist priests were the worst. Okay. Now, how much of this, all of these things we're going to use, we don't know. I mean, right now we have a whole lot of information, and it sort of keeps reinforcing itself. The priests, none of them seemed to have anything to do except stand on street corners and jeer at Europeans. All of this was perplexing and upsetting, for at that time I'd already made up my mind that imperialism was an evil thing. Sooner I chucked my job and got out of it, the better. Theoretically and secretly, of course, I was all for the Burmese and all against the oppressors, and it's interesting that it's secret. As for the job I was doing, I hated it. But again, a lot of these things reinforce each other, so sometime from all of these things we might end up having 3 sentences. You see the dirty work of the empire at close quarters, the wretched prisoners in the stinking cages. I don't know how that would necessarily come into our description, but it could become important. All of these oppressed me with an intolerable sense of guilt. That seems very important. But I could get nothing into perspective. That's also an interesting statement too. I was young and uneducated, and I had had to think out my problems in the utter silence that was imposed on every Englishman in the East. I did not even know that the British Empire is dying. He makes that a statement. The British Empire is dying. That seems interesting. My hatred of the empire and my rage against the evil-spirited little beasts. Again, very strong statement here. Thought of the British Raj as tyranny. I thought that the greatest joy in the world would be to drive a bayonet into a Buddhist priest's guts. Feelings like these are normal byproducts of imperialism. And this is basically the end of the introduction that begins the story. The next section, section 2, begins basically the setup, the background, the situation leading into the conflict, the climax. So now my next step with all of these things is basically just to take these and organize them. Okay. Okay. Okay, and these go together because I have that little arrows that tells me so here we're just going through and we're taking it and we're going to make a list of all the information we have. And right now it's in the sequence that was given in the story, But that's going to change in a minute when we go and we start organizing it ourselves. Okay. And that's the end of that. Now the next thing is to try and decide what things here are going to go together. All right, so now we need to organize the information or group the information. So let's see. I was a police officer. Okay. In Mumbai, Burma. That's about him. The thing is, in the first paragraph, I may have police officer Lower Burma. He's young. He's uneducated. And then we go when we start describing his situation. We're setting up, the second paragraph sets up the circumstances. So I have my first paragraph, and now I'm going to have my second paragraph. So in my second paragraph, I say he had all these experiences. He hated his job. So I'm just trying to organize my information, and in organizing this information, I'm actually trying to organize my thinking about the story. How am I going to write about this? Now, from this information, I'm going to take this information, and then I'm going to have to go through and I'm going to have to paraphrase all of these ideas. So for example, I say, okay, so I have these things, so how would I describe that? It's like, well, okay, I'm going to have to say, he is angry. But I'm just saying the next step then will be to take these ideas and try and write these ideas out. It takes time, takes a lot of thinking. So basically, take a half an hour, do some work, and then take a break so your brain has a chance to rest and get clear. Maybe come back a little bit later the same day and do another half an hour, or do a half an hour every day for 3 or 4 days. But you need to go step by step. You need to take your time. You can't rush this. Rushing this leads to bad organization. And if you have bad organization, then you're going to have a text that's disorganized and also not well thought out. So I hope this helps. I look forward to reading your texts. Thank you.